Hey, what's up, guys? John here again. Today, I'm going to be showing some of you guys simple DIY. Anybody can do this. I haven't seen too many videos out there for the X5. How to replace the oil cooler gaskets from the oil cooler and the oil cooler gasket from the oil cooler to the engine block. Two different gaskets. Most BMWs, newer versions, E90, E92s, and N54, N55 tend to leak oil from these areas. So you take it to a shop, it's going to cost you a nice shiny penny. You can do it yourself. It's not that expensive. Some of these gaskets are only, anywhere from $10 to $15 or even $30. And they're pretty easy to do. So today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to do it on a 2011 N55 E70. And just so you guys can get a look at what this one looks like, I'll show you a nice step-by-step. So first and foremost, what we want to do is obviously, in order for you to identify that you have this problem, what you want to do is look at the actual undercarriage, and you can also look at the top part of the engine. If you notice oil, and if you guys can see that, you can notice oil here, and you'll notice oil splashed on your charge pipe. Some cases the oil will be splashed up on top of the hood, underneath the hood, and you'll notice that you're leaking oil, whatnot. That's an indication. So more than likely, if you notice the oil all in that area where the oil cooler is at, and oil spilling onto the timing belt band on the bands, on the pulleys, or all that stuff, then most likely you have the issue. So anyway, to get started, I'm going to show you guys how to remove this stuff. It's pretty simple. What you want to do is first start by removing the actual, this is the actual snorkel for the intake housing. It's pretty simple. Once you open the hood, there's some small tabs right here. There's one tab here and two on the back. The way to get to those is underneath the kidney grills here. You want to do is squeeze outward. Actually, you want to push inward on the first tab through the bottom, and then the back two, you want to pull towards you, and that should pop and set it free. I already removed mine, so, and then just get a small little pick tool of such, and then pick the tabs on this side here. I already picked them, so that's why it broke free, and that should come off just like that. So next thing, obviously, you want to remove all this plastic. This cover, I already removed it as well. It just snaps. Reach your hand down towards the bottom corner, pull up, and it should pop off, and you should be able to take that off fairly simple as well. Okay, so we got to this part. I actually forgot to show you the first part. This is what the actual gaskets look like. This one here, and I believe this one goes from the oil cooler to the engine block. And this one here is actually the oil cooler gasket that goes in this area here. And that's what seals, obviously. That's why you see a little puddle of oil there. Then you'll see oil splashed up on underneath in this area, even on this, on the other parts of the engine. You see oil here and whatnot, charge pipe. Okay, so the next thing is to remove this support bar. It just consists of removing two bolts on each side, two there and two here. Once you do that, it'll loosen up. You use a 13 mil to remove these bolts. They shouldn't be too tight. They're should be fairly snug. Once you remove it, it's going to be hard to pull out because there's two pipes in the way. One on this side, hoses I should say, and one on this side. I already took mine out, so what you want to do is grab your pick tool and then just pick this little tab up, and then you should be able to pull that out. That's the that's your coolant reservoir. You pull that out, and then that should allow you to lift this hose, and you'll pull this bar out like so. Oh, and remember that your hoses here are clamped here, so you might want to push those forward. It is a little tough. It is going to take a little bit of time to wiggle them out. And also these tabs here hold onto this wire, this cable, so you got to pull those out. It shouldn't be a big deal though. Next thing to do is to get more room, you might want to consider removing the fan assembly. In order for you to do that, that way you have plenty of room to stick your hand in there and work in there. We're gonna have to remove bolts here, and on the bottom, and it's kind of hard to get into the bottom bolt when you don't have enough space. So in order for you to remove this fan assembly, you're gonna have to, I already unplugged mine. All you gotta do is just squeeze each side of this clamp, the connector. Squeeze the side and then pry up and get that out of the way. And then the next thing is there's some tabs on the side, right next to the connector, and on this other side, there's also a tab right below the plastic that sticks out from the fan shroud. To the side, there's a small tab. You got to push it in on both sides in order for you to push in and pull up and get that thing out of the way. So I'm going to do that next, and I'll show you a more closer look once I remove it, so you can see where those tabs are. Okay guys, I just got the fan removed. So the tabs I was talking to you guys about are these right here. These tabs here, what you got to do is push in on this top part. You might want to start with the left side first. The left side is this tab here. What you want to do is push down on this tab on this side. That should release the left side of the fan assembly. Hold it up just a little, and then move to the right while you're still maintaining this left side pulled up a little, and then hit the other tab on the right side. Once you hit that, it should release the whole fan, and it's quick and easy. When you're pulling it up, there is a side tab. So this fan came out like this. Pulled it out. When you're pulling it up, this side piece actually comes out. It folds so it doesn't hit the top. Otherwise it's going to hit, and you may break it off or something. So just fold that in, and this other side doesn't fold in, so that folds in and it comes straight up. And so now we're at this stage. I can look in there and I can see oil on top of the pulleys and all over the bottom down there. So obviously that's an indication that the oil is coming out. I'm going to stick my camera here in, see if I can get an image. So if you notice, there's a lot of oil all up in this area. You notice there is no oil coming out of any parts or any section anywhere around the actual valve cover gasket or around the valve cover. I looked everywhere around it and I don't see any kind of indication that it's leaking, so I know it's not the valve cover. It's all isolated to the front part. I could just change the front oil cooler and I'll be done quickly. The problem is if the other gasket goes bad, the one that connects from the oil cooler to the engine block goes bad, then I'm going to have to do all this work again, and I'd just rather get it over with now. The downside is to this is that by replacing both, this one I'm going to lose a little bit of oil. This one I'm going to actually lose some coolant over here. So you may want to cover up your belts with some kind of cover. Make sure that you have a lift your vehicle up and have something to catch all the oil and coolant that's going to fall on the bottom. I'll show you guys how I prep. Okay, next move, guys, is to jack up the vehicle. Not like literally jack it up, but like lift it. Some of you are like, what? Jack it up? Anyways, put some jack stands on it. Make sure you're secured, and get yourself a. I got this ugly looking drain pan. I don't use my good ones when I'm gonna have coolant and oil mix in there. So anyway, yeah, just get that. So what you need under here is just some screwdriver. You may need a breaker bar. That's what I got, and a 16 mil for this panel here. There's some bolts here, and they just continue along the side and around. Okay, so I'm done removing the under panel. Like I said, I removed both the metal panel and the plastic one. And anyway, so I removed both panels, the plastic one, and I sprayed it down. I'm cleaning them. And you don't have to remove this one, but I did because I want to clean it. I want to make sure there's no oil on it, so that if I'm servicing it or whatever, I notice if there is any new oil leaks, I can tell. The next thing to do is, and I'm gonna do, I just removed this this box, the air intake box. These tabs here, there's a total of 4 of them. All you got to do is pull really hard and pry this out. Don't worry, you're not going to break anything. It seems like it's stuck, but it's not. Just pull it. I would pull it from the front first. It should pop off. Make sure you loosen that tie, metal tie from there, and then you should be able to loosen and pop the other sides. That you have to remove, as well as this intake manifold. If you're going to do the oil gasket that connects to the engine block, you will have to remove this because there is a bolt that is way in the back. You probably can't see it. It's somewhere right in this area. You won't be able to get to it unless you remove this intake manifold. If you're just doing the oil cooler, well, as soon as you remove the fan assembly, you can get to work. Cover up, like I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna put some plastic, so like plastic bags, so that way you can kind of direct the oil when it falls, and it'll just fall into that into that drain pan. But if you are doing it like me, you're gonna do both of them. You will need to remove this unit here, and you're going to have to remove that other unit there as well. And that means removing this charge pipe as well, because it's connected to the so anyways, removing that intake box, the air box, will expose pretty much everything. And so the next thing to do is to untie this strap here, remove this little plastic hose, and remove the clip. And I should be able to get rid of the charge pipe, and I can go ahead and remove the throttle body from here. And there's this deal here that comes off with it as well. You just pull up on it and it unties there. I had already removed previously my air box. Some of you guys will probably run into the trouble of removing the these plastic things that go into this, these little T metal clamps. They're a pain in the butt. I just left them off. It doesn't hurt anything. They don't really move anywhere. It just looks neater when they're clamped on there, but it's a pain in the butt to remove them. Is to go ahead and remove this this vacuum hose. You squeeze the clip and pull it up. Then there's another part for that same hose. You squeeze the clip, and it's this one here has the actual squeezing mechanism come off with it. And the other side, it doesn't come off with it. It just stays there, the squeezing part. And then you can squeeze it off of the air inlet side. Squeeze that, and you should be able to remove this whole vacuum hose. After that, you might want to disconnect this one because this pipe has to come up just to give you some wiggle room. You can move that to the side. Then pull up the C-clamp, which I've already done. All you got to do is use one of your handy dandy pick tools. Once that's loose, you should be able to push down and wiggle the charge pipe. See, now it's loose and it's disconnected. So okay, so like I said, I removed this plastic thing here from this metal clamp that's attached to the actual manifold. It's easier to remove this plastic thing than to remove the screws that are underneath here. So just remove that plastic off of there. And then removing the throttle body, it's just the 4 bolts that I said. You need a 10 mil. I just use this screwdriver mechanism looking device tool. So anyway, got it pulled off. I like to do the bottom ones first, and then the top ones are easier. Once that falls off, then all you got to do is disconnect the actual throttle body. It's connected to the back over here from one of these vacuum hoses. So just squeeze the clamps, kind of like when we did these other ones. Squeeze that, pull it off, and that should set it free. And there may be another connection. Oh yeah, there is. Electrical connection that hooks up to the ECU, the DME. So you just gotta squeeze those clips as well, and then pull them off. Go ahead and start removing the sensors here for the manifold air sensor. We can put the clip here and pull it out, and then we have to remove all these small bolts. Okay guys, so now this this part is where I've already removed the manifold. I know I didn't show you guys how I yanked it out completely, but I mean, it's not that hard. For some of you first timers, it might be a little challenge. Like I was saying, all you got to do is pull off all the small nuts, which are these here, and then there's one bolt in the very beginning, right in this area here. And once you get that one out and all those nuts, then you should be able to wiggle the manifold up and up and out of the way. One of the things that I also removed on this corner here is this manifold goes just like that. So one of the things I removed that you're going to need to remove is there's 2 screws here, and that's for this plastic base right here. There's a bolt there and one right there, and I think that's a T. I want to say that's a T25. Yeah, T25. So you got to remove those so that that plastic is not holding onto this manifold. Another thing that you have to remove besides that is all these wires are kind of, all those wires are just kind of like on top of, right in this area. You got to pull them out of there, let them fall over that way. And then the last thing is unplugging all these plugins for the DME. I labeled mine just, you know, the previous time that I had did a carbon cleaning, my ports, my valves, and it needed it again. It's been about a year or so, give or take, since I last did it. They were starting to get a little dirty, so I did it anyway because I already had everything off. You may want to consider doing it since you're already here. And you can kind of see they're nice and clean now. So anyways, you may want to consider doing it since your manifold is off. You don't have to. I just went ahead and did it anyway. I had all the tools, and I'll put a description on how to do it. And I have another video if you haven't seen it. Check that out. It shows you how to do it step by step, how to get to this part, and actually how to even operate the machine. So anyway, and where to get the parts and stuff. So anyway, the next thing is knowing how to unplug these. The first 3 plugs here are these here. What you have to do is to release them, there's this little lever. First you have to push this. You see this button right here, right next to my thumb? Yeah. So anyway, it's closed like that all the way, and then you just got to push on the button from this side over here, push it down, and that should release this tab. As soon as you push it over, this clip will come out. All 3 of those first clips come out the same. These 2 here, there's an actual prong that you have to squeeze on both sides. These here are a little tough to pull out. I would pull this one out first. It's got a sliding pin on this last one. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, it's this one here. So this one is just got this sliding thing here that snugs it down. So you pull it out, and then you should be able to pull it up. When you put it back in, you put it in, and then this locks it into place. So anyway, remove that one first, and then you should be able to do these other 2. You just kind of have to squeeze the top part of them, pull them out, squeeze there, pull it out. Now I can actually get to this bolt right here. This is the one that was hidden underneath this area right here, and therefore you can't remove the actual whole housing of the oil filter. I can access this bolt and this one here. There's 3 bolts here, one here, one there, and then one on the bottom. Once we pull that out, I got this set up here. I like to make sure none of my belts get all dirty, so I got some plastic lining. I just kind of snugged it underneath, so when I pull this, when I pull the oil cooler off, all the oil that's going to drain, it's going to fall down. At least it won't get much more than I need to, because I'm going to need to clean it anyway. Got some of this engine degreaser, just spray it down, and then you want to water it down. I use a small little tank here with water. I can spray it off afterwards. You don't want to hose it down because that's way too much water. And make sure you don't get the connectors, electrical connectors, overly wet. I'm sure you can. I've cleaned it before. They get a little wet, but don't do it excessively. So anyway, let's move on. Gotta remove this one, and I'll show you the inside. Okay guys, so we're at this stage now. Removing this oil filter housing is fairly easy. All you got to do is remove this bolt here. There's a bolt right down here, and there's another bolt on this side over here. And it's I'm gonna use a E-Torx. It's an E10, so that I can remove those bolts. And on this side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ratchet, small little ratchet end, so that I can fit it in. That's one of the only ways that it'll work, because this bolt has to scoot back when you're unthreading it, and it's going to bump into this this hose and this bolt, and that's going to get in the way if there's not going to be enough room. You'll have to remove that if you're using an eTorx socket. So this has worked out better for me. So okay, so let's you have to remove this plug-in here, and once you remove it, you want to clean it all up from that side, and also clean it up all from this side and remove this gasket and anything underneath that's all dirty. Okay guys, so alright, so I'm at the stage now, and I got the housing removed from the engine block. It was 1, 2, and 3 bolts. I was able to remove it. I removed the actual gasket from there. I made sure I cleaned up all the inside of the section where the gasket goes so I can put the new one in. Beware that coolant will be dripping continuously because you get to move these hoses, and obviously you squeeze or move something and some of the coolant will just drip out. That's why I put some of that lining there so it can drop down there. So anyway, to remove this one here after those bolts, you have to disconnect this connector here, which just sits right here. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and fit the housing in, and then close it back up, tighten it down, and you want to do tightening slowly each individual bolt, so that way it evenly compresses evenly. Okay guys, so I got this front part removed, and so this is what it's going to look like on this side. I went ahead and cleaned up this area here already. I've already replaced this other side here, so now what we want to do is remove this gasket with a pick, any kind of pick that you may have. All you got to do is just poke it, and poke one in and pull it all out, and that's what you're going to throw away. You remember, you don't want to over tighten. If you do, chances are you're going to have a leak again. Okay guys, so I went ahead and replaced the gasket now. Here, this is the new gasket. You want to just set it in place, and I cleaned off this surface area of the oil cooler, so it's nice and clean, nice and flush, and it's going to make a good seal. So what we want to go ahead and do is set it back up and start. I like to start with the bottom bolt right down here, and then you want to just snug all the bolts down by hand, and then gently start tightening in a star pattern. Okay guys, and so now I have the oil cooler back in place, all cleaned up. So I got all the bolts tight down. Everything looks good. Do not over tighten, like I said. I keep repeating that because, you know, obviously you're going to be doing this job again if you over tighten in 6 months or so. So from here, all we got to do is do the exact reverse. Start putting the manifold back on, and you know, piecing these things back down, tying all the wires, and don't forget to, you know, connect all the wires that you disconnected back into place. And yeah, so if you need, should be pretty simple from there. All you have to do is do the exact reverse. Look back at my video and see what I've disconnected and how I've done it. Hey guys, so I hope a lot of you guys found this video helpful, especially if you have that 2011 and above N55 X5. So if you guys found this video helpful, you know, smash that like button, subscribe. I got several other DIY videos coming up, more content, and yeah, so thanks a lot guys.